A legacy silenced the history and mission of Voice of America. Voice of America, or VOA, has been a beacon of truth and a symbol of American ideals for almost a century. Founded in 1942, its mission was to counter Nazi propaganda during World War II. Broadcasting in multiple languages, VOA provided news and information to people trapped behind enemy lines, offering a glimmer of hope in a world consumed by darkness. After the war, VOA's mission expanded to counter Soviet disinformation during the Cold War. It became a lifeline to millions living under communist rule, providing uncensored news and promoting freedom and democracy. Over the decades, VOA evolved into a multimedia news organization, reaching millions worldwide through radio, television, and digital platforms. Its journalists and broadcasters adhered to the highest journalistic standards, providing accurate, objective, and comprehensive coverage of global events. VOA's commitment to truth and its editorial independence, enshrined in a 1976 charter, made it a trusted source of information for people seeking an alternative to state-controlled media. However, this legacy of truth-telling and commitment to a free press came to an abrupt and shocking end on March 14, 2025. On that day, President Donald Trump signed an executive order effectively dismantling VOA and other U.S. government-funded news outlets, including Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and Radio Free Asia. This action, which sent shockwaves around the world, marked a dark day for press freedom and dealt a severe blow to America's standing as a global champion of democracy. The executive order, Trump's decree, and the justifications given. President Trump's executive order, issued with characteristic disregard for democratic norms, sent shockwaves through the political landscape. The decree was presented as a necessary measure to protect American values and taxpayer money. The administration claimed it was designed to prevent taxpayer funding of what they termed radical propaganda. This justification was rooted in the belief that certain media outlets were misusing public funds to push a biased agenda. The White House, echoing the president's long-standing and unfounded accusations, accused Voice of America, VOA, of exhibiting a left-wing bias and being anti-Trump. These allegations were part of a broader narrative that sought to discredit any media perceived as critical of the administration. These claims, however, rang hollow to anyone familiar with VOA's long and distinguished history of objective reporting. Established during World War II, VOA has been a beacon of unbiased news, providing accurate information to audiences worldwide. The order, widely seen as an attempt to silence critical voices and control the narrative, fit a pattern of attacks on the free press that had characterized Trump's presidency. This move was perceived as part of a larger strategy to undermine journalistic integrity and stifle dissent. The administration argued that the move was part of a larger initiative to reduce the federal bureaucracy and eliminate wasteful spending. They framed it as a necessary step to streamline government operations and ensure fiscal responsibility. However, critics were quick to point out the hypocrisy of this claim, given the administration's history of lavish spending and its disregard for fiscal responsibility. They argued that the executive order was more about political control than genuine fiscal reform. Furthermore, the relatively small amount of funding allocated to VOA paled in comparison to the billions of dollars spent on other government programs. This discrepancy highlighted the selective nature of the administration's scrutiny. Many of these other programs, which faced far less scrutiny from the Trump administration, involved significantly larger sums of money. This raised questions about the true motivations behind the executive order. The executive order, which also targeted several other government agencies, including the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars and the Institute of Museum and Library Services, was met with widespread condemnation from both Democrats and Republicans. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle saw it as an overreach of executive power. Many saw it as a blatant attempt to consolidate power, silence dissent, and reshape the media landscape in a way that favored the administration's agenda. This move was viewed as part of a broader effort to control the flow of information and limit public access to diverse viewpoints. This assault on the free press, a cornerstone of American democracy, raised serious concerns about the future of democratic values in the United States. The implications of such actions extended far beyond the immediate political landscape, threatening the very foundations of a free and open society. Fallout at home, immediate impacts on VOA staff and operations. The impact on VOA was immediate and devastating. The sudden changes left the organization in disarray, with staff members scrambling to understand the full extent of the situation. Almost all of VOA's 1,300 staff members, including myself and other seasoned journalists, were placed on administrative leave. This abrupt decision not only disrupted our professional lives but also had a profound personal impact on each of us. This sudden and unexpected loss of livelihood sent shockwaves through the organization, leaving many feeling betrayed and uncertain about the future. The atmosphere was thick with anxiety as we all wondered what would come next. VOA's ability to counter misinformation from adversarial countries like China, Russia, and Iran, a crucial function in an era of increasing global tensions, was severely hampered. Our mission to provide accurate and unbiased news was now in jeopardy. The silencing of this vital voice dedicated to providing accurate and unbiased news to a global audience left a dangerous void in the international media landscape. The absence of VOA's reporting created a gap that could be exploited by those spreading false information. The executive order also had a profound impact on the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which oversees VOA and other entities. The ripple effects were felt across the entire agency, disrupting operations and morale. USAGM was instructed to reduce operations to the legal minimum, effectively gutting its ability to carry out its mission of promoting freedom and democracy through independent journalism. This reduction in capacity was a blow to the core values we stood for. Federal grants, which supported VOA's broadcasts and digital platforms, were terminated, leaving the organization in financial limbo. The loss of funding meant that many of our projects and initiatives had to be put on hold or canceled altogether. This sudden and dramatic loss of funding jeopardized VOA's ability to continue operations in any form, even in a reduced capacity. The future of the organization was now uncertain, and the prospects were grim. The closure of VOA sent a chilling message to journalists and media organizations around the world. It underscored the vulnerability of the press, even in nations that pride themselves on upholding freedom of speech. It served as a stark reminder that even in countries with a long tradition of press freedom, the media is not immune to political interference. The implications of this were far-reaching, affecting not just VOA but the global perception of press freedom. The Trump administration's actions sent a dangerous signal to autocratic regimes that silencing critical voices and suppressing dissent is acceptable, further eroding the already fragile state of global press freedom. This emboldened those who seek to undermine the free press. The dismantling of VOA, a symbol of American values and a champion of democratic ideals, represented a significant setback for freedom of expression and the free flow of information worldwide. The consequences of this decision will be felt for years to come, as the world grapples with the loss of a trusted source of news and information. A global gag order implications for media freedom and U.S. influence. The closure of VOA was not just an American tragedy, it was a blow to media freedom and democratic values around the world. The Voice of America had long been a symbol of free speech and a bastion of independent journalism, standing in stark contrast to the state-controlled media prevalent in many parts of the globe. For decades, VOA had served as a beacon of hope and a source of reliable information for millions living under oppressive regimes. Its broadcasts transcended borders, bringing news and perspectives that were otherwise inaccessible to those trapped in information blackouts. Its broadcasts, often the only alternative to state-controlled media, provided a window into the outside world and a platform for dissenting voices. People in these regions relied on VOA not just for news, but for a sense of connection to the broader global community. The silencing of VOA left a void that was quickly filled by propaganda and disinformation from authoritarian governments eager to exploit the absence of a credible counter-narrative. These regimes wasted no time in amplifying their own agendas, further tightening their grip on information. The closure also had significant implications for U.S. influence abroad. VOA was more than just a news outlet. It was a strategic tool in the United States' soft power arsenal, helping to shape global perceptions and foster goodwill. VOA, with its global reach and reputation for journalistic integrity, played a vital role in promoting American values and countering anti-American sentiment. Its presence in conflict zones and areas of political unrest provided a lifeline of truth in times of chaos. Its closure dealt a severe blow to U.S. soft power, making it more difficult for the United States to win hearts and minds in an increasingly competitive global information environment. The absence of VOA's trusted voice left many questioning America's commitment to freedom of the press. The Trump administration's decision to dismantle VOA, widely seen as short-sighted and counterproductive, raised serious questions about America's commitment to its traditional role as a defender of freedom and democracy. Critics argued that this move undermined decades of diplomatic efforts and moral leadership. The void left by VOA was quickly filled by state-sponsored media outlets from countries like China and Russia, which seized the opportunity to expand their influence and promote their own narratives. These outlets were quick to fill the gap, often with content that was biased and aimed at undermining Western values. These outlets, unconstrained by journalistic ethics or a commitment to objectivity, flooded the airwaves and internet with propaganda and disinformation, often targeting the same audiences that had once relied on VOA for accurate and unbiased news. The spread of fake news and manipulated information became rampant, further complicating the global information landscape. The closure of VOA, therefore, had the unintended consequence of strengthening the hand of America's adversaries and undermining U.S. interests abroad. It not only weakened the global fight for free speech but also emboldened those who seek to control and manipulate information for their own ends.